It's exactly 4 in Cairo. It's now time for Word of Info. So back again, this is Word of Info, and today we have our special guest, Soraya Bahgat, founder and CEO of a consulting company, and we have Dr. Amr Mabrouk, professor of plastic surgery at Ain Shams University, Dua Muhammad at the controls, and I'm Niglaء Nagib, and we'll be with you until 5 p.m., so stay with us.
I wanna know you need it though. No, you didn't mean it though. I know you didn't mean it though. I can't seem to let you go. Can't seem to hold you.
So back again, Word of Info. Hello, hi.
Hi, Niglaء. Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
It's a great pleasure to have you. Yes, Ms Soraya Bahgat is a jack of all trades and master of all. That's very nice. She has a BA in political science, a graduate diploma from the American University in political science, and a master degree, which is in the making of, almost in the finish, in cultural heritage protection from the Sorbonne. She speaks English, French, Spanish, German, and Finnish, and she's very young and very charming indeed. And today, really, it's a great pleasure to have her with us because, in spite of her very young age, yet she was able to do a lot of things in her very young life. Because definitely, this goes with the motivation, with the culture, with the background, and we are here to talk and probe a young Egyptian youth. Really, it's very kind of you to come in your busy schedule.
No, thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be here.
No, and definitely we're going to talk a lot because you're just disguising in the fact that you are an owner or a president of a private company that goes in PR and human resource management, yet you have a lot of activities. And I think you worked for many years, even before your graduation from the university, from the American University, in spite of the tough study. You worked in a very huge company. We're not going to mention its name, but it's, trust me, our dear listeners, it's a big company, and you worked sometimes offshore and also in Egypt. And then the revolution came, and you were involved in the revolution, and yet you started your field and work of women empowerment, women protection. And we are here today with these two beautiful women today to talk about women empowerment and about women because Egypt has been always in the past, in the history, with great respect to women. When you go to the ancient Egyptian museum, and you can see the how the Egyptians treated women and how they considered them to be equal partners in their lives. How, like for example, Ramses II has shown his wife and Nefert, and of course the most important Akhenaton has shown his beautiful wife Nefertiti. And as we go and we see all these beautiful commemoration of women, and of course they were not only the deities that they worshipped were not only men, they were women. Isis was a former great inspiration. Hathor was symbolized as a cow and symbolized as a woman. So women are a very important part of Egypt. We have had queens of Egypt in ancient times. We had Hatshepsut, we had Nefertiti, an authoritarian queen. We had Shagar-ed-Dur, who saved Egyptian civilization and was a great motivator for her husband, Salah Najm-ed-Din Ayyub. And we had in our recent times Safiya Zaghloul, who was acted as, in spite of the fact that she was the daughter of Mustafa Pasha Fahmi, one of the great collaborators with the British occupation, yet his daughter was totally different, and she was given the name the mother of Egyptians. So we talk about Egyptian women. We should show them respect and care, and we are here today to defend the rights of women and to talk about what a young lady like you is doing for empowerment of women. Thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you for having me. I have to say that the journey really started by accident. I was in the office, an HR director at the company that shall not be named, but it's a big company. And this was a year into the revolution, and people were going to the square to protest in huge numbers every Tuesday and Friday. And then stories of sexual assaults came out. And I knew this is not the nature of what that congregation was at the time, so I decided that I wanted to do something about it. And it started really, it started from a place of me thinking that I'm afraid to go on my own, and no woman or girl should feel that she's afraid to go and make her voice heard. And at the time, everybody was going, but we were going with friends. And I think right away I said, if only I had a bodyguard, I would go. And then I was like, hey, that's a very interesting name, Tahrir Bodyguard. And I decided I wanted to be a bodyguard for all the women and girls who are going to the square. And I think inspiringly, what happened is that it just, once I hit the go button and started it on Twitter and started, conceptualizing what it would look like and buying the uniforms, which were, by the way, very simple construction vests and helmets, because that was the easiest and fastest thing I could find, and because you could see them at night. It just spiraled. It was inspiring to see all these young Egyptian men who said, we want to volunteer. We don't mind risking our well-being just so that we can protect women from these vicious mob sexual assaults. And I think right after I embarked on this journey, I realized how important it is to work on women's rights in Egypt, given our rich history, which you so well, presented. I cannot even compete with that, so I will leave it at that. But that it's important that we also tackle what goes behind that phenomenon that we saw. What's behind it? Let's have a study of the laws affecting women, the perceptions. And then that took me on a journey, and I couldn't be prouder to call myself, an advocate for women and to work on this.
I've recently read some things about the statistics of women, and I really find it sometimes disturbing. In my medical school, where I work as a professor, I find that the percentage of young girls who are listed in medical studies might approach 60% of the enrolled students, which is, of course, they are very studious, they are hard workers, and they even go into more tough things like the gynecology and obstetrics, like general surgery, like plastic surgery. They are working in all the fields of medicine right now. They didn't yet go into orthopedics. I think they will do that one day. But this is stimulating, and to find that the statistics is low in the percentage of literacy, this is very disturbing, that girls are still now more illiterate than men, and that there are ladies or young girls who are not able to fulfill their dreams of higher education, or even a simple education, or going to school. Sometimes the distance could be far away from their homes. The idea that a girl would go, if there is money to spare, then we'd spend this money on the boy and not spend it on the girl. So how can we really promote the first important thing, which I believe, which is education? And education for the girls is like a weapon that you're giving this young girl to protect herself without a bodyguard.
Yes. Well, actually, there was this saying that a lot of people like to share, but when Queen Rania said, when you educate a man, you educate a family, or when you educate a woman, you educate the future. I say, education for all is the future. Yes. I think at the root cause of this is these perceptions against girls, that some parents, as you said, they don't send their girls to school because of economic reasons. They'd rather invest this in boys, who are the traditional breadwinners in Egyptian families. Some just because they want to protect girls from certain, perceptions. They are worried that these girls will not find husbands. They want to protect these girls. They want to protect their reputation. And I think fundamentally, all this boils down to breaking down these negative stereotypes.
Yes.
And I would love to see every Egyptian family understand and celebrate the potential of girls.
Yes, definitely.
We're celebrating that, recognizing the contribution women make, and giving them the opportunity to not only reach their potential, but first to help them recognize their potential and what their talents are and what they can do with them. So I think one of the things I've worked on in Upper Egypt is a training center. We had like an after-school activity center, which was a safe space, and we made it a point actually not to have it for girls alone. We wanted to show the community in a village in the west of Luxor that boys and girls can have a wonderful learning experience together. So what we did is we supplemented their educational experience with specific exercises masked through art that aim to foster certain competencies, equality, teamwork, respect for others, etc. So I think it has to start from a very young age, and it's really a big cycle. It's the school, home, activities, and also I think television plays a very important role in shaping perceptions.
I think women can do it, and I always give the tribute to for any success that our family has done was because of my mother, because my mother was insisted when she was sister of other 6 girls in the 40s, and yet she insisted on continuing her education, forcing her way to the university and then a master's and a PhD afterwards in the 50s and 60s, which is years that didn't see a lot of women get proper education. So we have seen girls, if they insist or if they are motivated or if they are given the motivation, they will do it. The sky is the limit. So how can, beside this training center, what are your other ideas that really can help in this field of education? Because we are going further into work community before the education.
So I'm just gonna go back to the point you mentioned about the women who are, you know, a large percentage now of students in very technical like studies. Like if you go to the College of Engineering, you will hear that the percentage of enrollments of women is increasing. However,
my daughter is an engineer.
Oh wow, you must be very proud.
Very proud.
And actually, you find it even in countries that are seen as very, very oppressive towards women, like, you know, you have Iran, for example. You see that women are getting into technology, etc. I think the problem is that gap between the studying and entering the workforce, you know. So it's a battle for a lot of women to finish school. Like I see it in stages. So just to finish high school, that's already like a milestone. A lot of women young girls don't even get that opportunity to finish high school, and then afterwards they enter college. And of course there's the fight of there are these traditionally female colleges to attend, and women still have to, young women, they fight to get into engineering, technology, IT, medicine, and then comes the ultimate fight of getting into the workforce.
Yes, tell me about your experience with the workforce, because I believe you have started this business of yours simply to empower women. You are hiring more or less women who are in need of work and at the same time might be depleted from office times because of other obligations. Tell me about that.
So I'll tell you, I'm actually a certified HR director. So that means that I've passed 2 US-based exams to call myself a certified HR director. And I think in 15 years of working in HR, I saw that it's not just about glass ceilings. You know, we also have glass walls. So a lot of companies traditionally place women in these very traditionally female jobs: reception, marketing, PR. Yes, exactly. Secretaries and admins. These cute jobs. So I think that there's a big role that companies should play, and HR departments should be real champions for women. You know, the trend right now around the world is for companies to start realizing the important economic benefits they have when they actually empower women. Companies, statistics, I mean, it's all statistics.
Yes.
Companies that have more women on boards are achieve better results. It's simple because, you know, women constitute a big part of, you know, your consumer. I actually sometimes say that for some goods, women are your target market. How could you not have at least half of your board women? How could you not have women leading the key departments? And that is such an issue. And I think that we as consumers, we have the power now through social media to make our voices heard. That, you know, we can boycott companies that don't really respect or empower women, and we can choose to support others that show a strong commitment towards women. I'm not going to say the name of the company, but I was recently invited to give a talk at a company that said, you know, we're inviting women to talk to our female staff because we have made the discovery that the 65% of our brightest employees are women. We have very, very, you know, ambitious targets for next year, and we know that it's these women who are going to drive us forward. So we want to really empower them, and they did a whole 2-day event just to bring the message across that we empower you, we count on you, and we want you to know that.
Before we go off air for a minute or two for recess, I would like also to remind you that this is a global problem. Recent statistics that I have read, even in a country as a superpower like the United States of America, still the CEOs who are ladies are underpaid than their
Absolutely.
counterparts in similar economically stated companies. So therefore 100 companies of the Fortune magazine, you'll find the ladies that are CEOs are less paid than the
Absolutely.
counterparts. So it's a big problem, and I once discussed that with one of our friends, the diplomats, an ambassador. He said to me, this is a big problem, and this is still a stereotype, and I believe this is a very bad stereotype.
And it's all over the world, unfortunately.
Yes, all over the world. So we'll have a break and go back again about women empowerment.
So back again, Word of Info, and we have our special guest, Soraya Bahgat, CEO and founder of a consulting company, and Dr. Amr Mabrouk, Professor of Plastic Surgery at Ain Shams University.
Off air, we were talking about a very nice talk that you presented into one of the companies that you were consulting, and this was about women. And you said that the benchmark for women is much higher than the mark for men, because women, whenever they go for work, tell me,
Well, I
have a lot
decided.
of challenges, right?
Well, I decided I'm going to include this in every talk I give now, because that's when the women started really clapping. Because I just said to all the men here, you have to remember and understand that we hold women against higher standards, to higher standards. We expect women to show to the office fully groomed, hair done, dressed well, not too conservative, not too liberal. So you see, every morning we need to like hit that balance and make that difficult decision. And we need to be very good at our jobs, and then we need to get home to clean homes and children that are well raised and fed, and we need to balance home versus work. And just it's not the same pressure that men go through. It's just different. It's like, you're being judged on so many levels. And I was talking to you, I think, off air about also ways to promote gender equality, but indirectly. Like, I mean, one of them was in my old company, I decided that I wanted to make a point. So I put in a policy that new fathers get 3 days off, fully paid, gift from the company. Go home, stay with your wives, experience fatherhood, support her, and understand that this is part of your duties.
I hope they didn't go to a coffee shop.
Yeah, maybe I should send some guy. Should have sent some people behind them.
Yes. Well, this is quite interesting. So we're talking about work environment, and usually sometimes work environment is not very receptive or welcoming women, and they really suffer. And I know that from my experience, having a working mother and working sister and a working wife and a working daughter, I believe. So all this makes us going into the fact that the benchmark is high. What are the methods that you suggest that to bring up the equality in the field of work, since you have worked in human resource management?
Yeah. As I said, it all boils down to management, HR department, and line managers that are all champions for women, because they understand that women's rights it's not a human rights issue. It's actually much larger than that. It is equality. Gender equality has economic consequences. Everybody wins when gender equality is achieved. So it starts with also policies that enable women to work. For example, one of the wonderful things that happened with the amendment to the labor law is that women now have longer maternity leaves. And now companies have a role to find a way to integrate women again, to reintegrate them when they go back to the workforce. Because a lot of women, there's a point when they take, let's say, 2 years off, they don't know how to re-enter. And I think it's important that their old companies or other companies recognize the contribution that they can make and their talent, and support them in this transition. A lot of companies, I'm very proud to say that the company where I was HR director, we had a nursery. We had a nursery because we wanted to support women that came to the office, so that they can be good moms, and at the same time they can fulfill their, pursue their careers. And one of the saddest things that happened was that I would talk to a lot of these new moms when they return from their maternity leave, and they would say, they felt this constant guilt.
Yes.
A constant guilt that they were not, that they could have done more as mothers, but they have to work. So I think companies need to take that into consideration and find a way to support them with all these issues.
I think this is really quite difficult times when a woman is forced to leave her work simply because she has to take care of the children. And giving this support or giving more malleable times with the advent of the internet and the computers, some of the work could be based from wherever. I mean, absolutely, yes. And this is I think could solve the problem. When I was asking my friend, the American gentleman in business, and say why these ladies are underpaid, and he said because there are gaps in their CVs. These gaps should be not be put. I mean, if the gap is written because she was taking care of her family or she was raising children, well, she was giving to the society what the society really needs in the end. So if a lady was forced to stay behind because she had to take care of the kids, this should be added as an asset to her CV, not as a minus.
Absolutely. And you know what? I've started giving advice to women who are home taking care of kids. Please use the fact that the internet has made it possible for you to pursue degrees and certifications and courses to be up to date, because you know the world of business is changing like so rapidly. Imagine the person who did traditional PR 10 years ago. Now it's like, you know, a large part of it is like digital. So if that person never taught themselves what digital marketing is, they're not going to thrive in today's working environment. So a key component is, even if you take 2 years off, use the internet. Use that and try to keep your know-how up to date. And then, you know, that's I guess why I wanted to also start my own company, because I wanted to enable some new moms to become consultants. They don't have to show up. They just have to work remotely, as you said, and take advantage of all these strides in technology.
So I think we need to have a break to talk more about women empowerment and then about heritage as well.
Yes, back again, word of info, and you can call us at 2578-9407. Again, word of info, and with Soraya Bahgat, again, more feminist, more equality, more gender.
More feminist talk to go, yes. And you have a journal of feminists, right?
Yes.
My notebook.
Your notebook, right.
Good.
And this is very important, because women need a mentor. And I believe, I mean, all through my life, I was always looking for a mentor. And one of my professors, Professor Qutbi, who was a professor of ENT, but he was my mentor in education, in culture, and in a lot of aspects, music. So a mentor can really shape the life of his student and get him into the right track and let him follow him and have the enthusiasm to go with. And of course, the progression of women. Let's talk first about mentoring. You have a project for mentoring, right?
Yes, and it's basically to follow the trend worldwide of mentoring networks for women. So accomplished female executives, female leaders will be matched with young women who are starting their careers, who need that support that you talked about, need that mentoring. So the project basically enables them to find the mentor, because one of the challenges in a mentoring relationship is actually finding the mentor, how to approach someone. The person has to be open to it, because it's a very unique relationship, mentor-mentee. And it comes with responsibility on the sides of both. It's not easy to be either a mentee or a mentor, because a mentee needs to come prepared with what she really wants to learn. And the mentor is usually successful and busy.
Yes.
And you find that a lot of people have a hard time delegating, have a hard time finding time to actually teach. The higher you climb up the success ladder. So this project aims to give them a platform through a website and through the use of social media that they apply. And then there's a team of volunteers in the back end that matches them with the pool of mentors. And what we do is we go through our personal network of friends. So I spoke to friends of mine who are, female CEOs, doctors, researchers, actors, and they're all leaders in their fields. And I said, would you like to do it? And they were like, absolutely. And so there's another team that works on compiling them and also giving them tools on how to become an effective mentor. And the volunteering team in between, what they do basically is just try to connect both and regulate this relationship.
Of course, and then there is the other problem, which is progression of women. Yes,
huge problem.
Yes, you were giving me an example when a man receives a promotion, and the director or the manager would tell him, "Are you up to it?" He said, "Yes, of course," and without even discussing any plans. The most important thing is there will be a raise in the money or not. If there is a raise in the allowance, yes, I can do it. I match that program. I will do it. But usually, ladies have their own doubts. I think because of the meticulousness, the type of the way women, as you know, women are from Mars and women are from Venus and men are from Mars, then there is the difference in the way of thinking. And women would always doubt, are we up to the challenge? Will be able to or capable of doing it or not? And this is the point that really hurts the women in their progression.
Yes.
So can you elaborate on that, please?
Yes, I was actually told this story, and I've seen it repeated through so many other people by my boss, former boss, who was a Dutch CEO, and he said he was surprised genuinely, as you know, I'm giving you a promotion. I mean, and they would be like, oh, I'm not sure. I have to be very honest and tell you that I personally, when I got promoted, it was a surprise. I started having doubts.
Really?
Yes.
With
Because,
all this
I mean,
confidence,
I
with
feel
all this
here-
feminism,
we-
with
we
all
are-
this feminist journal
Yes.
and all this
Well,
feminist attitude.
yeah, I mean, I think I'm among friends, so I have to be very open and tell you that I was one of these women. The feeling of self-doubt, fear, and fear of something that's not yet happening, fearing that I'm going to fail. And I think it's also because part of us is not really prepared for this, because the support networks in large companies exist more for men than they do for women, for purely practical reasons. Is because you have men go and play football together, they go watch football games together, they go have shisha together after work, they go to cafes, but women don't have that same setup. They might meet, female colleagues might meet once a week or something, they might meet for lunch, but they don't have these structured Wednesday night football, Friday night, whatever movie. Like the men, they have this, and I think that's also part of the perceptions. And there was a huge study that I urge everybody to Google about female attitudes towards management and leadership. It's available online, and you'll be fascinated by the results. That they feel that one of the impediments, like the second reason for them feeling that they cannot progress in their careers, is about perceptions. And I think this ties through everything we've discussed so far. It is all about mindsets. Mindsets. Some managers also make it very clear to some women that, I don't want to invest in you because you're going to get married and you're going to have children, you're going to leave.
This is very harsh.
It is very harsh. They make it clear. I mean, they don't always say it so bluntly, but they make it clear. They'll give like certain tasks to men, especially young women who are pregnant, for example. And in the early stages, they will feel themselves excluded. And I think there are a lot of pressures, and also women with families, they hesitate in that moment when they're offered that promotion. They think, because they consider their families. I'm not saying that men don't consider their families, but they don't have the same practical pressure of is this new promotion going to take me away from home too long? Am I going to be able to make sure that my kids get to football practice and tutoring classes and so I think I would encourage women to step up and as my boss said, well, do you think I'm stupid to give you a promotion if you don't deserve it? And recognize that the promotion given to you is earned. So just to own it the way men do.
Yes, and as Roosevelt once said, the only fear that you have to be afraid of is fear itself.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So the second problem, which is the third problem, which is what Nagla talked about. Which is simply, yes, you have to raise this subject, Nagla, because this is a very interesting subject. We are talking about not a hypothetical situation. It's a situation that happens, unfortunately, to a lot of women all over the world, not only Egyptian women. The women who supported their husbands, who quitted their jobs, who quitted their future, and they went into the shadows of their husbands as they were raising the family and raising the kids. And suddenly, when there is sort of a family dispute and there will be a separation, then the lady would find herself losing this husband, and at the same time doesn't have a career or a good CV that will be matching for her to find a job. So how can we combat this situation? Do you have any ideas, Nagla?
This was my question.
Yes, I'm asking you, what do you think
Well,
of
this
that?
is what I wanted to ask. Actually, I don't know. This is what I really wanted to ask, because they don't have much experience, and they don't have any experience. They stopped work when they're in their 30s or maybe in the late 20s. They weren't lucky enough to have a job after that. They weren't lucky enough to leave their kids because they didn't have any support whatsoever, not from a family, not from friends, not from anybody. And then they had to stay for like 20 years without work. Then suddenly they come out of this experience with, in their 40s, having nothing. By all means, no experience, no money, and sometimes no husband, because he'd either left for anything or he died. So in that sense,
let's talk about the peaceful solution. Die.
No. So what would be the case in that? How would she start from scratch all over again? And this is a dilemma for most of them. Some of them are really from very good families and class and everything, but they can't even pay to rent an apartment for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very difficult question, and I think it's very hard to
and as I said, it's not hypothetical, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not hypothetical, but I can give you like maybe a few ideas that I have. I think what's nice about the field of HR is that it's evolving a lot. Like, 10 years ago, or 15 years ago, people would look at your CV and see, what exactly you studied, what degree you had, and what work you do. Today, it's all about competencies. That's why companies invest in assessment centers. They have psychologists that test what you are able to do. They put you in hypothetical situations, and that's why. And one of the reasons why entrepreneurship is thriving is because people recognize that that traditional structure of how many years of work experience do you have? You have to have 20 plus. You read all these job descriptions, and I don't know how many degrees and certifications. But where's the emphasis on what you are able to do, what your talent is? So I think that more companies need to understand what these women offer. And I also think that perhaps they could benefit from looking at non-traditional work arrangements. Some people are afraid, by the way, to join startups. That is an opportunity. Startups are an environment that is all about talent.
Okay.
It's away from the rigid structure that some corporates that have been around for 60, 100 years have. So I think that it's an advice for both the women and the companies to think outside the box. To think outside the box.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yes, I think this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yes.
Because it's a very big problem and deserves to be studied and deserves to be given more time.
And
I have to come back.
And it's a high percentage.
Yeah.
It's a really high percentage of women who are actually lost in you feel they are coming out from Mars to Earth, and they're not used to going to work or the challenge or the competition, and everybody's looking at them with skepticism and what are you doing here?
You just reminded me. I knew someone like that, and I loved what the person did. She discovered that she really loved making jewelry. She always wanted to do that, and I think when you're starting from that starting point, again, looking outside the box, you just don't think the first thing that comes to your mind that I'm going to go back to working what I did 20 years ago. So she decided to start from scratch, but in a field where she had both the talent and the passion.
Yes.
And you know what? She started with the most basic.
Yes, you have the talent and the passion. That's something. But if you don't have them, you don't know what to do about it. And there's this problem of ageism. People judge you also not by looks and anything, and they also judge by age. They say you're too old to start any job. So
it's unfortunately perceptions. I think maybe if there's one word that went through the whole episode today, it's like perceptions and stereotypes that need to be broken.
Yes, and definitely since Nagla brought the subject of age. Age is just a number, this is one thing. And the second important thing is that since the 50s and 60s, we find out that the age range of Egyptians has increased all over the world. So now it is 73 for men and 74 for women. So the potency and the capability of these people when they are in the 50s and the 60s, they still have a lot to give. So the motto of saying that a person is old because he's in his 50s or in his late 40s, I think this does not stand any criticism. Definitely it should be given the chance, they still can join the workforce, whatever the age is.
And they bring experience with them.
Yes.
Or just them.
Yes. Yes.
So after the break, we'll talk about heritage.
Yes. Back again, word of info, and you can call us at 2578-9407. So back again, word of info.
Well, when we go off air, there are always new subjects to raise. So, Nagla,
we need
you had a
never-ending
beautiful
discussion.
Yes, Nagla, you had a great question.
We're just having this.
No, we'll talk about heritage, but after this question of yours, tell me about it.
What was the question? It was about startups. If you are doing your startup and
You'll have your doubts.
you still have your
Absolutely.
doubts, and you still have your losing self-confidence, and sometimes you feel that you're missing out something, and you always don't know what that is.
It's actually really scary. Whoever said that having your own startup allows you to go to work whenever you want
Not
does
really.
not understand entrepreneurship. You
Exactly.
work 24 hours a day, and I think one of the key issues that people might not realize is you feel that you're carrying a burden not of just your own failure but others. The homes that you're feeding. It's quite a challenge. It's scary, and I'm terrified every day.
That's true.
And most of my friends who started companies, and trust me, no matter how successful they look, they have that same fear that they're worried that they're going to let those that depend on them down.
And even yourself, the idea of I'm closing down things, or I'm not good enough, or that's not working the way I imagined it to be.
But you have to push yourself.
Or I'm not getting a lot of clients, or
I know.
I'm not meeting my expectations or my forecast or whatever.
It's scary. Like, my friends were telling me to start this consultancy firm. They've been telling me to do this for the past 5 years. 5 years straight. Because I was doing a lot of the stuff that I'm supposed to do. I was doing it for free for friends. And I said, you should charge for this. But it took me 5 years to just start because I was afraid. And I figured, you know what? I'll just do it. If I fail, I fail. I'm just going to try.
Yes. This is what, like the famous Egyptian saying, which says, وَيَفُوزُ بِاللَّذَّاتِ كُلَّ مُغَامِرٍ وَيَمُوتُ مِنْ الْحَسْرَةِ كُلَّ جَبَانٍ. And it means in English, only the brave will win everything, and the coward would die from regret, right? So we talk about thing which is, I think, a very great effort that you're doing, which is heritage. You have your master's degree in finishing wordings, as you have said, from the Sorbonne, which is the protection of heritage and cultural heritage. And you have become interested into a subject that even the presidency and the president himself are interested in, which is the protection of the Jewish heritage, because Jews have been there in Egypt for quite a long time, and ever since before the medieval period, you can always trace them. Their population was limited, but they were original Egyptians. Most of them were Karaim, and they were about 7,000. In the 19th century, of course, in the medieval period, we had a lot of Sephardim coming from the harassment and the Inquisition done in Spain, and what was Andalusia at that time, when they came to Egypt and stayed for quite a while. And then there was, of course, the Ashkenaz, who came in the mid-19th, almost 1860s onwards. So by the late 1940s, we had almost about 100,000 Jews from different countries of the world and from different parts of sects of Jewish religion, whether they are the Karaim, the Sephardim, or the Ashkenaz. The lowest population was the Karaim, although they were mostly the original Egyptians, and they are now they are living in San Francisco. So we have a lot of temples, and we have a lot of work to restoration, and this is very important because this is Egyptian antiquity, and this is heritage. It should be protected and should be guarded, and at the same time it sends a very important message to the whole world. Egypt has been always the cradle of civilization. We had all the religions coming to Egypt, and we are protecting all our heritage. We are proud of our heritage, whether this was Christian heritage, Pharaonic heritage, Islamic heritage, or Jewish heritage. It all carries the stamp of this is Egyptian. So tell me about this work, because you are involved with Magda Haroun, who is the daughter, who is now the chairperson of the Jewish community, and she is the daughter of a great Egyptian man by the name of Shahata Haroun, a patriot, a nationalist, and a man who has always felt the great belonging to Egypt. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, I've known her since I was a child. I've known her in the family. And, well, you have perfect introductions, so I think you've covered basically the background, and she had the vision about 3 years ago to revive the Jewish community in Cairo's NGO, which is called The Drop of Milk.
It's original. It has been, I think, in the late 20s or mid 20s, to give a cup of milk for the youngsters.
Exactly. So it was a charitable organization, and what she did is she added the activity of heritage preservation. So there's a group of us that support her, and we formed a joint task force with the Ministry of Antiquities to document synagogues. We've finished about 8, I think. We've done a lot, and we hold events to raise awareness, because as you said, this is Egyptian, it's part of our heritage, and one of the things that makes our country so special is the fact that, you know, we had that pluralism, and it's really a melting pot of so many different, you know, ethnicities and religions. And
when my father graduated from medical school in 1950, he had 2 of his colleagues, and 2 is a good number for 150 students graduates, who were Jews, Egyptian Jews, pure Egyptian Jews, and a lot of his friends, one of his friends married, for example, from a Jewish lady, and so it was very cosmopolitan country, and a cosmopolitan city Egypt was, and Cairo and Alexandria. So I believe that taking care of these synagogues is proving something. I think the synagogue in Adli is in a good situation.
Very good one.
I've seen that, and we have one which is I always like that. My office in Heliopolis is beside 3 important places of worship, and the nearest of them is the Jewish synagogue in Heliopolis.
I know now where you live.
so this is my office. So there you can find Jewish synagogue 150 meters away, and 250 meters away is a mosque, and 300 meters is the Basilic Cathedral of the Catholics. So all in one vicinity, all in few hundred meters, and my office is just in the center of that. This is what I call Egypt, right?
Yes, it is indeed.
So you're giving more effort in that direction. Besides,
yes, I've been heavily involved in this for the past 2.5 years, and it's a passion, and it's really very rewarding, because I keep falling in love with my country whenever I visit a new synagogue and discover something new and see just the richness, and you can see that there's a lot of art put into the design and construction of the synagogues. And you talked about Adli, which is coincidentally my favorite synagogue, because it's inspired.
Although it's one of the newest.
Yes, it's actually been I mean, 1905 I'd say was completed, and what I like about it is that it's inspired by an Egyptian temple, and you find the symbol of Cairo's Jews, the palm tree, everywhere, and I really like it. It's really beautiful.
And there is, of course, Ben Ezra, which is in Pavilion and or in Fustat, and of course there is something in Abbasiyya that you're trying to restore as well, right? More or less.
Yes, there's in Maadi. I mean, they're like all over, and I mean, it's very fascinating to hear that there are ruins of a synagogue in Al-Mahalla Al-Kubra.
Yes.
It's
I'm
quite
sure that is.
Yeah, and there's of course Alexandria, and Alexandria was in the news because the synagogue is being restored at the moment. It's one of the most beautiful in the world.
So keep the good effort going.
Thank you.
Soraya, we really have enjoyed the talk, and you promised to come again.
Yes, the time passed so quickly. I need to be back.
True, that's true.
And we'd like to talk more about women empowerment, because the subject of women empowerment is very
ongoing.
Yes, ongoing,
and still
very
empowered,
empowering.
not yet empowered.
Yes.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much for coming, and by this we come to the end of Word of Info with Soraya Bahgat, founder and CEO of a consulting company, Dr. Amr Mabrouk, professor of plastic surgery at Ain Shams University, Dua Muhammad was at the controls. I'm Nigib. See you next Thursday, same time, same station, FM 95.4.